I'm here today to hopefully help some of us start talking about or thinking about achieving our dreams. I'm sure the MC is now happy that I've covered who I am. Yeah, so welcome to Wealth Creation 2018. I want you to tell your friend, welcome to Wealth Creation 2018. I can't hear you. Tell your neighbor, welcome to Wealth Creation 2018. Thank you so much. So, as I was preparing my presentation, I was thinking about men, I was thinking about women, I was thinking about youth and young adults that are going to be creating wealth, or they're in the process of creating wealth. Do we have some in the house? Yeah? Okay. So, as I was thinking of them, my mind was taken to people that are not in Malawi, unfortunately. I started thinking of people like Bill Gates. I was starting thinking of people like Warren Buffett, people like Oprah Winfrey, Mark Zuckerberg, or Richard Branson. These are people that have created wealth and continue to create wealth. If you don't know about any of these people, I'll ask you to take your time and read their stories. It's quite interesting. And then I was taken back to the 1800s, where I was thinking of people like Cornelius Vanderbilt. And this is a man who built the train industry in America and built the Grand Central Depot in America. For those of you that have been watching movies, I think you know that the Grand Central Depot is one of the biggest train stations in the States. And it's quite interesting to note that this was not built by the government. This was built by one man, actually. One man built the Grand Central Depot. One man built the train industry in the States, and his name was Cornelius Vanderbilt. I was taken to people like John D. Rockefeller. For those of you that don't know this guy, John D. Rockefeller is widely considered the wealthiest persons of all time in the States, I think in the world as well, and he traded in oil. How many people? One person. Then we have my favorite, I'm sure also my brother who is at the back, Mike, is going to like this one. His name is Andrew Carnegie. So this guy discovered the use of steel to construct infrastructure. Steel, those things. Before, steel was used only for cutlery, but this guy discovered that you could use steel to construct buildings, and he became a billionaire because of it. I'll get to his story later because it's quite interesting. And those in finance, I think you know about JP Morgan. Do we have people in finance? We don't have people in finance, but we're here to create wealth. Interesting. So there's JP Morgan, and then he's the financier and the banker who dominated the finance industry. You can't learn about financing without knowing people like JP Morgan. And finally, I'm sure this one we should all know, Henry Ford. So he's American captain of industry and a business magnate, the founder of Ford Motor Company, and the sponsor of the development of the assembly line technique on mass production. I'm sure all of us have driven or have seen a Ford somewhere before, right? That was developed by a person as well. A person with flesh and blood, like you and me. And when you go to the stories of the people that I've just shared, what you're going to find is that except JP Morgan, all of these people were not born in rich families. And I'll repeat that. Except JP Morgan, all of these people were not coming from rich families. But we are talking about them today. In fact, if you look at the story of Cornelius Vanderbilt, if you look at the story of John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and Henry Ford, they had at one point slept without food. But today, we talk about them as people that created wealth. And then, as I was still thinking, I was like, okay, let me get away from the States and come to Africa. Two people came up, Strive Masiyiwa and then Aliko Dangote. We all know those two, right? Do we know them? Do we know them? Yes. These are also human beings. They are African. They are black, like you and me. But they have also managed to create wealth. But this might also be too foreign. So I said, let me get straight home and talk about Napoleon Dzombe. And I'll be talking about him, and I'll share his experiences. Why? Because Napoleon Dzombe is a Malawian. And I just learned about his full story a few days ago, so I'm also as excited as I'll be sharing. I hope you're also going to share in the excitement. So in 2013, Dr. Napoleon Zombe bought a rice processing machine costing 6 billion Malawi kwacha. This is a Malawian. 6 billion. Parliament was talking about 4 billion sharing, right? This person, one man, 6 billion Malawi kwacha, bought a rice milling factory. And this is one of the first in the Africa to have the biggest rice milling machine in this country, in Malawi. And I speak right now, this man in 2017 invested 2.1 billion Malawi kwacha in a bamboo factory at Kasia, right here in Lilongwe. And will be producing a lot of things from furniture, toothpicks, and all these things. How much? 2 point what? 2 point what? 2.1 billion Malawi kwacha. And if you read the news this week, this same person in the national newspaper carried an article where it stated that Napoleon Zombe of Ntalimanja Holdings is a new investor in the modern international and intercity bus terminal project to be constructed here in Lilongwe. How many of you read about that article? Okay. And then the cost of the bus terminal is estimated at 19 million US dollars, which is equivalent to 14 billion Malawi kwacha. This is a Malawian, yeah? Is it sinking? Oh, we are getting there. Okay, so, but who is he? So Napoleon Zombe was born in abject poverty. His family could only have food for 3 months after harvest. So every time they harvested, 3 months after they had the food, they got into no food. So they had to start hunting for food. So when do we harvest in Malawi again? In May, right? So probably by which month they were into hunger? June, July, which means the rest of the month until the other month, they have to figure out how they're going to eat. So this is the kind of life that he grew up in. And he was very familiar with sleeping on an empty stomach. And the first thing that I want us to come to grips with is, it doesn't matter where we start from. It doesn't matter where we come from. It doesn't matter our backgrounds, but we can all become wealth creators and billionaires, actually. Because from all these stories that I've been sharing, one thing still comes up. Where you start is not necessarily where you're going to end. I was about to say, can I get an amen, church? Okay, so this young man loved education, and he still loves education up until today. Still in poverty, this young man managed to find individuals who started supporting his education. But this did not address the challenges he was facing. I want you to think for a second, how can you go to school when you're only having 3 months of food? It's a reality, right? So one holiday, this young man borrowed money and he invested in maize. He sold the maize and he made 4 times more. He was in secondary school. He made 4 times more from the sales. He was able to raise money for school fees, money for his family, and also to keep change for himself. So he had spare money that he had kept. And here comes the second lesson. If you want to create wealth, you just have to be ready to take the first step. Do we agree with that? Okay. So this person was in a situation, he borrowed money, made 4 times more, repaid the loan, was able to pay his school fees, was able to give money to his family, and he had some spare change. But because his system allowed him to go back to school, he thought of going back to school to pursue his secondary education, until one day when he started thinking and asking himself questions about, if I made 4 times more, how about if I quit this whole school thing and invest full time in business? I'm not saying you should drop out of school. I'm already seeing some people thinking about that. There is a reason why people drop out of school. Usually it's because they have a plan. All right? So what did he do? He had to drop out of school. He dropped out of school because he wanted to create wealth. And then later on, he started to invest in his business. He was very disciplined in how he managed his finances. His business grew and it continues to grow. And today we know him as a billionaire in Malawi and the world. But it would be really misleading if I just say a story that sounds like that, because it's not really that straightforward. Wealth creation is not going to be easy. Do we agree with that? Do we agree that wealth creation is not going to be easy? Do we have wealth creators that are having challenges right now? Yes, we have wealth creators that have challenges in their house, yeah? You have to sometimes make decisions that will only make sense to you and your God. And I'll repeat that. You have to sometimes make decisions that will only make sense to you and your God. Your family might not understand you. Your husband or wife might not understand you. Your boyfriend or girlfriend might not get what you're trying to do. Your friends will think you're very mad. Sometimes you might even be called for special prayers at church because people want to lay hands on you because they don't really understand what's moving in your mind. So therefore, people think you're obsessed with the devil, and therefore they have a demon that has to be cast out on you. Why is everybody smiling like they have had this experience before? But the thing is, you don't have to worry about that. For one reason, you're not the only one actually that is not understood. And in fact, you're not supposed to be understood. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? So tell your neighbor that you're not alone. Tell your neighbor that you're not alone. We are in this together. The last part did sound so right. We are in this together. So, going back to the story of Napoleon Zombe, when he dropped out of school because he wanted to create wealth, this didn't make sense to people. Because he was in a system where dropping out of school and wealth creation didn't make sense. And I think it still doesn't make sense today. I am dropping out of school because I want to be creating wealth. I can see a daughter and a parent in the same space, that if a daughter was supposed to give that speech to the parent, there will be some very interesting consequences that will come. But wealth creation and dropout could not fit in the same space, but he had to know what people had to say. So he focused and continued to focus. And at the end, he was able to establish a business. And just to take you back a little bit, I want you to understand one thing, that if you are to create wealth, or if you are to you make a decision that I want to create wealth, you are not going to make sense like I said. Think of Mark Zuckerberg, for example, or think of Bill Gates, for example. When at 19 years old, he was establishing Microsoft. He didn't make sense, right? He didn't make sense. Or J.P. Morgan, when he was talking to people, that I have seen that we can use steel to construct infrastructure. The only thing that people knew that time was that you can use steel to have forks to create plates. So sometimes you can be so advanced in your thinking that people are not going to understand you because you see the future that they don't. Amen? I'll repeat this, and I have to stand here. Sometimes you can be so advanced in your thinking that the people that you're talking to might not understand because you are 10 or 30 years ahead of yourself. Think of Thomas Edison, for example, when he was inventing the light bulb, and then he was telling his friends, I'm going to create a light bulb, and then we're going to light up the town. People must have thought he was crazy, right? Or when he was saying, okay, I'm going to invent electricity, and I'm going to create DC. People thought he was crazy. Now, imagine yourself telling your friends that I'm going to be a billionaire in the next 5 years or 10 years. People are going to think you are crazy. But that's okay. Tell your neighbor, that's okay. I was born crazy anyway. We were born crazy, yeah? So, I don't want you to focus on making sense. And I don't want us to stop. I want us to stop trying to make people understand what we are doing. I've just quit my job and I've gotten into agriculture. And the first year, the harvest was not that good. People are going to tell you, my friend, apply for a job and go back and let's continue with this good life. Because that's what makes sense. My husband has just quit his job. Does he know the problems we are facing in this family? He's taking a risk. Get another job and let's continue with this life. Because that's what makes what? Sense. But if you see 10 years from there, you might see that he might actually become a billionaire, even buy the company that he was working in, and then you all have a good life, and then it will make more sense actually. Amen. Okay. Now, the other thing that I also want to share when it comes to Apollyon Nzombe's story is that he was living with his family the time that he decided that I'm going to quit school. I don't know how it went when he went back home to talk to his father about it, but I'm sure it didn't go so well. We have parents in this building, so I don't have to create the picture. They know the picture, and we have kids as well who understand how that was going to go. But because he was a man on a mission, he continued to do his business, started making more profits, and the business expanded. And then the interesting thing happened. Now that he's making money, now that the family is able to have food, every problem that was happening in that family was heaped on him. There is an engagement ceremony happening. Napoleon, we need money. There is a wedding happening. Napoleon, we need money. There is a funeral. Napoleon, we need money. Does that sound so familiar to some of you? You have just set up a business and you constantly have very nice friends that are coming up with all their problems and you happen to be the solution to their problem. Now, this is a person who is almost the solution to their family, or he is the solution to the problem of their family. How did he handle that situation? He saw that the more profits he was making, the profits were going back to sorting out the problems in the family. The man was being kept by his father at that time, so he was the only one who had at least the rights to access the money at the bank. So he was making money, but somehow the man was vanishing on the other side. So he had to decide to make a decision. He had to leave his father's house. He had to leave his what? His father's house. So he had to move to another district. Not in the same area. You know why. So he had to move to another district. And that's the other thing that I want us to understand today. That if you want to make wealth, you have to be willing to make hard decisions. Leaving your father's house is not something which is easy. Your father might not like it. You might not like it. Your family is going to look at you as somebody who is rebellious. And you as being the person who is a solution to their family, and then you have left them. That's witchcraft. But he had to make a decision to leave. So while he left, he went to the other district. He had to sit down. He was not only leaving for a vacation. He was there to try to figure out, how am I going to help my family? Also get money to ensure that the business is able to run. Now, when he was away, he was able to figure out a formula to deal with all these issues. When he was what? He was away. That's the other thing that I want us to take for today. You need a moment of silence. You need to get away from the noise, think and re-strategize. I'm sure the people that are in this room right now, they know what I'm talking about. If you're into a business, even if you're making profits or you're making losses, you still need a moment where you sit down and try to figure out what's working, what's not working, and how can I do things better. Do we agree or don't agree? We agree, right? Yes. So he eventually had to go back. Now, when he was going back to his father's house, He was the one in charge of finances now. He told them, this is the amount of money we're going to be spending for this house. When it comes to charitable work, this is the amount of money we're going to be spending on it. So if you have taught the community that I'm the solution to your problems, I'm sorry. I'm not the solution to the community's problem, but this family's problems first. The other ones, we are going to sort them out later. And some of you to start making wealth, you just need to make that particular decision actually. I know there are very generous people in this room, but sometimes you're into poverty because you don't know how to manage your finances, and you use being charitable as an excuse when it's not an excuse. So Napoleon Dzombe managed to expand his empire by reinvesting his money into the business. That's the other thing that I want to talk about. He was a young man. He was a young man. How many young men do we have in the house? Please raise your hands. I can see Enson, yes. Young ladies too, please raise your hands. This is a young man, has established a business. The business is thriving. He has a social status to keep. He wants to look cool, wear the latest clothes, drive the latest car in town. Yep. Am I exaggerating things? I mean, I start a business. The next thing is you see my Mercedes parked outside, yeah? And then I move from where I stay in area 47, and in no time, I'm into debt. But this person, what he did was, he decided that I'm going to use my profits to invest back into the business. And I'll repeat that one. I'm going to use my profits to reinvest into the business. He has made profits. From the profits, he has removed some money. Obviously, to sort out the problems of the family. The rest of the money was not for him to use, it was for him to invest back in the business. How many of us have a Christmas every time we make profits? Yeah, I see people are not raising hands because it's the reality. So, when we make profits, it's time for us to finally go to the lake and go on that international cruise that we have always wanted to go to, and eventually come back to a company that's no longer working because all the money that we're supposed to use to make it grow has been used to enjoy. So anyway, the final thing that I'm going to talk about is, and this I learned from having a conversation with Napoleon himself just last week, that he believes in God. And I remember what he said. He said, if you want to be a wealth creator, you can't create wealth if you don't acknowledge the source of wealth, which is God himself. And it is foolish for you to think that you can create wealth without God. I was like, wow. Now, I know that sometimes when you start making a lot of money, money kind of takes over. But this is the person who is now able to invest about 14 billion into a project, but he still makes that statement. If you want to create wealth, you have to know God. I mean, in Pingo. I guess that's why we're in this building, yeah? And the final thing is also that, the second thing from that, he said that if you want to create wealth, you also have to take care of God's people. What does this mean? And how does this look like to him? So Napoleon provides scholarships to students who study at local and international universities. He provides the Kunipala to over 12,000 people every year. And between 2001 and 2002, he was a major figure in giving aid during the 2001 and 2002 drought in Malawi. Drought in the country, you have hunger, and he was among the people that was giving aid. From a person who could barely have food to a person who is able to feed more than 12,000 people, he's able to rescue the government when they don't have food. How does that happen? Ask your neighbor, how does that happen? He's Malawian, he's black, grew up in a rural area. If you cut him, you're going to see the same kind of blood that is oozing in your body. but he's now a wealth creator. So in summary, I'm just going to talk about a few things. One, wealth creation is for everyone, regardless of where you come from. That's the first point. The second point is you have to be willing to take the first step. Wealth creation is for everyone, regardless of where you come from. It's for me, it's for you. Number two, you have to be willing to take the first step. And there is no one else who's going to take the first step except you. You can't delegate this one, unfortunately. Number three, when struggle kicks in, you have to know that you're not alone. When struggle kicks in, when problems come, always be assured that you're not alone. Number four, don't aim to make sense. I said sense is what? Is overrated. Number five, you have to be willing to make hard decisions. Decisions that might not please everyone, but you have to be willing to make those hard decisions. And then you have to be able to create time to think and re-strategize. Get away from all the noise. Think and re-strategize. Profits are not for you to enjoy. They are for you to invest in the business again and for the business to grow. Wealth creation is God's business, and take care of God's people. So this is a sure way that you become a wealth creator. May God bless us all as we become wealth creators. May God bless Mother Malawi as we become a nation of wealth creation, and God bless us all. Thank you.